Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Coffee and Open Source, a place to meet some new friends, have some great conversations, and maybe learn something along the way. I'm your host, Isaac Levin. If you're enjoying the conversation here, be sure to like, subscribe, follow if you're watching or listening. Also, if you or someone you know like to come on the show and have a chat with me, you can find me on social media, the same one that you're at. And if you go to isaac.r11.com, you'll see a list of all of my different places. But yeah, let's get started. With that out of the way, I'm going to talk to a friend that I see on conference circuit all the time, talk to each other online a little bit. I'm looking forward to having a long conversation. My guest today is Ed Charbeneau. Ed, do you want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Ed Charbeneau. I'm a senior developer advocate now at Deepgram, and I've been a long time .NET developer, and more recently I've gotten into all sorts of things. So we've got quite a bit of runway to talk about anything you want to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about a little bit of everything, right? Before we get started, I would love to hear how you got started. Like, when did you realize, Ed, that like technology was the thing for you?
So we'll have to go back a few lifetimes, right?
Sure.
So probably like as soon as I could pick up anything and walk on my own, if it had a
Oh, wow.
button on it,
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I would press it. So one of the first phrases that I was told that I would say is push the butt. And the butt was a button. And
Sure.
anything that was button operated when I was a little kid, I would walk up and press buttons on, regardless of what it did. So that naturally just flowed into everything in my life. Like when I was in grade school, I want to say it was probably, I was old enough to read a little bit. So it had to be like second grade, maybe, where, you know, you're pretty fluent at like reading. We did a class with computers, and we were given, the app was called Logo. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but I'm old
No.
enough to remember it. And that was back when you had the monochrome, like green screen computers that were tape fed, like cassette tape fed.
Sure, sure.
And Logo was a little app that was to teach people how to write BASIC, I think it was, but it had its own language. It wasn't quite BASIC. I think the language was called Logo. But you would use it to drive what they called a turtle, which is basically an asterisk
Yeah.
around the
No, I,
screen.
I remember the turtle. I remember the turtle. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So turtle was on the Logo app, and you'd basically just give it like go-to statements to drive the little asterisk around and draw lines on the screen, and you could pick up and drop a pointer so it would draw a line, kind of like a virtual Etch-a-Sketch. It was real high-tech stuff back then,
I mean,
like 1980 something.
the the it's so funny because I think for a lot of us in tech, like we're introduced to like a game, like a silly game, right? Like I remember like it on the like the Mac 2 or the Apple 2, there's like this little worm game. It was like a words game that you would like have like it was kind of like Snake, but it was with worms. And I remember
Yeah.
like if you finish your like work in second grade, like you get to go to the back of the room and like go on the computer and like play the worm game. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Um, and
Yeah,
I
for
think
me that
for
was
yeah, it
probably
was
Doom, right? Like
Doom.
Doom was that
That
game blew my mind.
yeah.
Like I did everything you could possibly imagine with that game, like made levels and hacked it and added things to it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was watching a video yesterday with Scott Hanselman and Mark Rusinovich do like these like video like they do like these like they record themselves talking to each other. And Rusinovich he created like the Death Star in Doom, like uh running in the browser or somewhere else. And I was like, oh yeah, that's I totally have not thought about like using AI to like mod games. Like that's like the whole concept is you were doing that before it was cool then. So you were like, did you do like the
Yeah.
whole like 3D modeling stuff and art well 2D modeling obviously for Doom, but like video
So
game creation stuff that way?
yeah, you got to think like back then there wasn't the internet, so
Sure, yeah.
you were going on, bulletin boards and things to find pieces of information. that you could find. And then sometimes it was just like opening up files to see if you could read what was in them. And if they were text, if you could change something, did it have any effect on the games? You kind of just like hack away at things and see if it, randomly would do stuff. And I remember I dug into a file, and I don't remember how I found it, but there was a file that registered like different properties of all the characters and entities in the game. And I remember like flipping a bit um, for like non-player like entities. Like there was like candlesticks and lamps and things like that in
Sure.
the game. And if you flipped a bit on it, it would give it health. And if you could um, when the health went to 0, you could give it an animation to go play. So it was like a
Oh, okay.
pointer that pointed to like yet another entity, which was like the destruction like animation of something. So I remember like going through and like flagging all these things in the game. So like the entire environment was just destructible. So
Oh,
like
that's cool.
everything normally didn't die in the game. You just like shoot rockets at and like everything would start catching fire. I just thought that was fun and interesting. And then I ended up doing like level design stuff. So there was I think it was just called like WAD editor or something like that. And I got it off some BBS and tinkered with it. And like you'd have to like open one of the original game files and look at it and go, oh, this is how levels constructed. And then, try to build a small piece of that and see if it actually ran. Because there's no documentation, there's no website to go to. You're just kind of like going off of things that you could observe and recreate. So I made Doom levels, and then like I hacked away at some of the sprites. So I got like image editor that you could edit some of the files with, and there was like a little bit of a transparency mode and animation mode on some of the textures that you could mess with. So I made like a 3-frame animation that looked like raindrops, and then I plastered it all over like every window in the level, so it looked like it was raining inside Doom.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was like something that wasn't in the original game. Like there was no rain in the game, and like I made like the lights flicker and stuff to look like lightning and stuff like that. And I was sharing it with my friends, and they're like, "This is so cool! You made it rain in Doom." It was like one of the early hacks that I did.
I mean,
And then I
that's
moved on. Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead, finish up.
I moved on to like bigger stuff later when the internet came around and all that. So I did Counter-Strike levels,
Yeah.
and I did those not professionally, but I did get them picked up and put in PC Gamer magazine.
Oh, well, I didn't
Yeah,
know
and
you were
then
fame. That's like a level of fame that nobody like gets to achieve. Like being a PC gamer, that's a huge deal for a young person. How old were you when that? Like in your
uh,
20s?
probably yeah, early 20s,
Okay.
probably about 22, 23-ish. And I still have the magazine. It's in my magazine rack across the room. And I was on the CD, like all my stuff is on the CD. You could download the levels and play them. Um, so I've got levels in there, and then the magazine got picked up by Namco, and they called me for a job interview, but ended up not taking the job because I had to
Mm,
move to, what was it? They weren't in San Francisco. They were in LA, I think it was.
okay.
And I was like, yeah, my wife's not going to go for the LA
Sure.
move.
Sure.
As much as it'd be cool to like work in the game industry,
Yeah.
but like hindsight, like probably was a good choice
I was gonna
because
say,
the
yeah. I
game
only
industry
hear,
is notorious for like
yeah,
underpaying people and being really rough on like careers.
yeah. You seen Myth? Have you watched the show Mythic Quest?
Yes, I
Yeah,
love that show. I'm
I just
obsessed with
assume
it.
that's exactly what it's like, right? And
Yeah.
which is not probably accurate. Like I think any television is a warped perception of reality. But then you watch a show like Silicon Valley and you talk to people and you're like, oh, that's 100% true. So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
the game industry is weird because I think for so many people like us, it's our first introduction to technology and the idea that it's like I can like make a game or I can update a game or I can do things like that. It's so like addictive that it's interesting to do. But then you realize when you become an adult that like working on games isn't fun. Like you're not like it's a lot of, hey, we need to get to this particular date, and then we need to figure out how this game is profitable after it gets released, and all these sort of things, right? Um, yeah, I mean, I'll ask a random question because I played a ton of Counter Strike too. But what's your favorite map on Counter Strike?
Oh, I really actually like the indie maps, but as far as
Oh, okay.
official maps go, I wasn't a big fan of Dust. I want to
That's like
say,
the OG one, or like Italy. Italy's a big one too that everybody would play.
yeah, I'm trying to remember because I liked maps that weren't like the most mainstream ones.
Mm,
So like Vertigo, I think came later, but that was one of my favorite ones because it was more like a vertical like profile. So it wasn't as much about like running from point A to B as it
yeah.
was like the choke points that were up and down. It Yeah, I think Aztec was the other one. I think you just mentioned that one. That one was a blast too. That was one of the OG ones. But that one, I would do like the TMP was one of the weapons in there. And it was like really lightweight and it was like almost a hack because you could run really, really fast with it.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd run to the bridge and jump off into the water. And
Okay.
if you could get there before, you're running with the essentially like the lightest weight thing in the game, so you go pretty quick. If you could get over that bridge without somebody seeing you, you could get in the water, which was really quiet, and then run your way up behind the entire team and just mow them down from behind before they even realize you're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would get away with that so often, and it was so much fun.
Yeah. What was the one where it's like you're in a building? It's a hostage one. It's a hostage level, and you have to like navigate through all these different rooms and all these doors, and I can't remember what the name of that. But it was like you had to basically get hostages out of the building. I can't remember.
Office?
Was it called Office?
Yeah, it might
Uh,
have been just the
yeah.
most
Because
basic
I
name of
remember
it.
that one was always great because every time you open a door, like there's potentially a person there, and then whatever. I had a good friend in college that got really deep into like the modding of Counter Strike, like had 3D modeling software on their little laptop, and they would make maps and they would make
Hmm.
things. And I was just so envious of that because I don't have like a lot of the creativity gene. Like I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to do something like this, but like taking that idea and like turning it into a thing, it was always something that was just a huge barrier for me. Now it's not a barrier because of AI, but like it was just
Yeah.
like. But I think similar to games, and this is kind of where I want to transition a little bit. It's like that immediate like I make a change or I do something and I get like immediate dopamine. Like that's what I felt with the web. Like my first introduction to like being a developer was like in Notepad building an HTML website, right?
Hmm.
And the idea that I could type in a couple of stupid little letters into a notepad, save it, and then refresh like Netscape Navigator, and a website would update, like was absolute magic to me. And since then, like I got hooked. Like, did you have like a similar experience with like outside game development where like the idea of like writing code just became so addictive, or maybe not addictive is the right word, but it became like so interesting to you that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is the thing.
Yeah, so it's funny. I kind of fell into web development, not by accident, but out of necessity, I suppose. So I was into all the gaming stuff, and that's where I wanted to be. But when I got that interview with Namco, I realized like as much as I want this, it's not practical for
Sure.
making an everyday living, having a career and a family and all of that. It's just not practical. So
Yeah.
I don't want to say I gave up on it because if I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd totally like spin up a small game studio and just tinker with stuff like
I
that.
mean,
That's where I'd immediately gravitate. Um,
we know some people like Layla did that, right? Like, so,
yeah,
so the idea that if you have a really fun idea for a game and you care enough about it, yeah, like the whole financial thing is completely like out the window. Who knows if that's going to ever work for anybody? But like, I think especially now, we have a time where we're in a time right now where our time to do certain things is expanded a little bit. Like, you know, I've created things in the last year that I would like never take up that task because I knew it was going to be too much work.
yeah,
And now it's like, okay, well, if I have a good enough idea and I can define the expectations in my like in words properly, I can create it. which I think is a really interesting place to be. Um, like especially like you and me, like we probably have tons of ideas for like little apps, but it's like I'm
Mhm.
not gonna spend a weekend or a month like building a little app. Like, but now it's like a minute and a half or 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I've had a really good um, sixth sense about what's coming next.
Mm,
Always have. So I think that that's one of the reasons I end up in the positions I end up in. So I was doing all the game stuff, and I was at work. I actually went to school for electronics
okay.
because finding like finding a programming or software development course back then wasn't easy access. Like you could go to university and learn computer science, but you're always like behind several generations of technology there,
Yeah.
and they're teaching you like, how to build a compiler and all these super important things if you're going to build the next game engine. But
Yeah.
I was, the one that was like, all right, I want somebody else to build the game engine. I want to build the game. I don't want to be, that close to the metal. And I was looking for like some kind of education I could do that would get me to where I could, develop apps and things. There just wasn't anything at the time. And I was like, hardware's always been interesting. I'll go do that instead.
Mm,
So I went to school for hardware and graduated, and I was working at a defense electronics company, and they gave me an EEPROM programming department to run.
mm.
And I walk in, and it's like I step back in time like 15 years, and they've got like these old computers that, current time is like 2001,
Okay.
and we have, internal networks, um, basic internet. It's not like super fast or powerful at the time, but internal networks are. But they're running computers that aren't networked, and everything's on a 3.5-inch floppy disk. And the machines that you use to program the EPROMs, like you're loading firmware off a floppy disk, it's problematic on its own. All the setup for the machine was manual, even though the machine supported like automated like batch setups. So you could create like they're essentially little programs that you put on a file and it would set the machine up automatically. They weren't using any of that. It was too high tech for whoever ran it last time.
Sure.
They're like, we'll just repeat the same process every time we set the machine up, which happens, 2 to 3 times a day. So I got into that role and I looked at it and I was like, all right, first thing we're going to do is eliminate all this wasteful like time of repeating the same process over and over again. So I took uh, what they called the programming Bible. It was like all the work instructions for everything that was done in there, and I made a digital version of that using Visual Basic. And inside of those work instructions, I linked out to a network drive that had all of the setup files, all the firmware, and everything on a network disk. So you didn't have to run and grab floppies out of a drawer and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that stuff. And then the end user, all they do is walk over and scan a barcode, click a button, the machine would set up, and then put ICs in it and press a manual button to program them. That was it. Like I eliminated probably about 30 hours a week of my own time, and then eliminated all of the setup process for all the users. So they just basically scanned barcodes and ran the machines. My boss walks over and he's like, this is all really great and everything, but like, do you have a lot of free time now? Because I don't
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what you do anymore.
Sure.
You've
Sure.
kind of like automated most of your job here. And I was like, yeah, I probably got about 30 hours a week of spare time that you might want to put me on something else. And he's like, so you wrote this app that they're using. Can you do that again? I was like, yeah, why not? So they gave they hired a instructor led training session for like about 2 dozen people to do .NET. So teach them how to do .NET programming, and it was like .NET 1.0, and they taught like ASP.NET web forms at the end of it. And I was like, this is pretty easy. Like, I think I can understand this enough to build something next time they task me with something. So it all just took off from there. I just built apps all the time after that.
So this is a common theme that I see when I've been doing this show a while, and it's like people immediately are like, okay, this is a tedious task. How do I make this something that I don't have to do anymore? Is that
Yeah, I'm
something?
lazy.
Well, I didn't want to use the word lazy, but yeah, I
I'll use
mean,
it.
I think
I'm
it's
lazy.
the word is efficient. I'm looking for the word efficient.
Sure.
So is that something that you've always kind of been like? Has Ed always been like, to use your words, a lazy developer where you see something and you're like, I do this more than 3 times, I gotta automate this? Is that something that
Yeah.
you've all like, and you'll spend like 20 hours building something that replaces 5 minutes of your time once a week?
Sometimes. I mean, there's times where you get into tinkering with something, you kind of go down a rabbit hole. It's more fun to build the thing than the actual like results at the end.
Yeah,
But a lot of stuff was just out of necessity to not have to do the thing that I didn't want to do.
sure.
So school has always been like one of those sting points with me. So like I said, I've always had a knack for trying to figure out and understanding what's coming next. And I remember being a little kid and absolutely pissing off teachers with my hot takes on technology.
Okay.
So I remember it was like third grade, and they were teaching us cursive, which I still to this day refuse to use.
Okay. Okay.
Like spending 6 months to a year of my life in school learning a different font to me sounds ridiculous, and I'm glad they quit teaching it.
Okay.
There are people who will argue with me on that. That's fine. This is my hill to die on.
All right. All right.
But my hot take back then was I can go into the computer lab and I can just type.
Yeah.
Why am I learning another way to do handwriting, which is tedious and makes my hand hurt and bores me to death, when I could just go into the computer lab and type it into a machine and print it back out and make as many copies as I want? And now you're making me learn cursive. This is ridiculous.
Sure. Sure.
And the teacher's like, what is wrong with this child, right?
Yeah.
And I did the same thing in college when I went for electronics. We had to learn like every formula for every little thing in a circuit, which I understand the need to know where to find the formulas. I find the reinforcement of like learning how to do them by hand and out of your head to be a little bit ridiculous.
Sure.
So what I did is we had those TI-85 calculators. For young folks, this is basically your phone with a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
with a keypad and a really tiny screen, and all it does is calculate things and do graphs. So we had that. We were allowed to use it on all of our tests because you had to graph like certain waveforms and things. And I found it had a basic programming language. So it's like TI Basic or something like that. And the TI is Texas Instruments, by the way, if you're following
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
at home. So I went and got a serial cable because I found out it had like basically equates to a modem on it. And you could take a serial cable and I patched it to an audio port, which is what the TA86 calculator had for I/O. And you could put the attach the serial port to your computer, and then you could connect the I/O, the 35 millimeter audio jack to your TI-83 calculator, and then you could run like the AT, was it like ATDT, AT
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
connection
Yeah. Yeah.
commands, like the modem commands, and you could connect it to a computer, and then you could run like modem commands to send files to and from the device. So I'd get on Notepad and I wrote an app that did all of the circuit calculations, and it would just prompt you for the inputs. So it was like, how many resistors are there? Are they in series? Are they in parallel? And they would branch and loop depending on how many you had and like what configuration they're in. And then it would ask you all the values and the voltage and anything that you knew. And then at the end, you'd hit a button and it would spit out a sheet that gave you all the answers.
Yeah.
So I would go into our final exams with my calculator, and I never told anybody while I was in school that I was doing this. And I would walk out of that probably 2-3 hour test in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my professor, he had to have known I was up to something. He never asked. He did not care. As long as I had the answers, he did not care.
Yeah,
So,
I had a similar thing in high school. So like I can't remember. I think it was algebra 2 or something. Like whatever version of algebra where you start like working with matrices, right? And like we all like in order to solve like some of these matrix problems, like you had to use calculator. And uh, everybody got like a TI 83 or whatever. And I found that there was like a module that like literally was like pre like installed on it where it was like put in a matrix and solve it. And
yeah.
I showed it to one person, and like 2 days later we had a test, and literally everybody in the class like took 5 minutes for the test. And the teacher like the next day was like, you have to write down your work now for everything that you do. And I'm like, shit, okay, all right, well, that's on me
Yeah.
for sharing my little tricks with people. But yeah, I mean the idea of just trying to like shortcut like things that are tedious, or at least in my brain and probably yours, is like I don't need to waste time in this. Like
Right.
this is especially for something that I'm not interested in. Like, do you find, but I imagine also that when you're interested in something, you will go like so far down the path of like tinkering and experimenting and trying to figure out how things work that it's almost like obsessive. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's I don't want to use any clinical terminology because I've never seen anybody or been diagnosed with anything, but I think there's some things that certain people gravitate to. Like they can get hyper focused on things.
Sure.
I do that a lot with certain things. Like I will get super hyper focused on something and like not put it down until I've killed it. Like it's I've got to know everything about it, or it has to work exactly the way I want it to. And every other thing that may or may not be a priority in life goes away for a little bit, and like that thing takes over. So yeah, I've been there, done that with quite a few different things.
Sure.
Yeah, like we were talking about my VR headset before. Like I've done it with that before. Like it's one of the coolest little devices. Um, some of the stuff that I'll be working on soon is starting to catch some of my hyper focus time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be starting a show here probably to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've been working on, because
Cool.
I've been calling them side quests because I'm a developer relations person at Deepgram, right?
Yeah.
And I have to do my normal 9 to 5, but there's a lot of interesting stuff with the technology that we have. So I go over to Claude and I open it up and I put in a prompt and I'm like, hey, this is the thing I would work on if I had time to do something fun. Put in the prompt, then go off and do my job and come back and see what it built. So Claude has the side quest. Like it's like, all right, Claude,
Yeah.
go make this thing that I think is interesting. And so far it's been pretty cool. Like there's some stuff that it's come back with that's been fun, and I think it warrants its own live stream. Like
Yeah. Well, I think that there's space to show off what you're interested in for sure. And to go back to what you're saying about like the hyper focus thing, as somebody who takes medication for this sort of stuff, hyper focus is something that I've struggled with my entire life. Like I'm very guilty of, I'll be doing stuff and then I'll look at the clock and it's like 4 p.m. and I'm like, have I eaten anything today? Have I drank any water? Have I gone to the bathroom? Like you get so sucked into what you're doing. And I think that there's good and bad to that. And I think the good is that it allows you to work at a level that not a lot of people get to work at because they get distracted very easily by things. But then the bad thing is also it's I don't think it's very healthy to sit in
Did
one spot
did you
not
leave the
moving.
stove on?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Fortunately, I'm not like that so disconnected from things, but no, for sure, like the hyper focus thing, like, I'm looking around my office and there's so many like quarter done projects, right? Like, I have a stack of
yeah, that
Raspberry
that too.
Pis that I haven't touched in years because that was cool like 6 years ago. You know, Miscellaneous things I don't want to get rid of because the second I get rid of them, I'm probably gonna want to pick them up and play with them. Yeah, no, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun being in tech and having money and then having like unlimited things that you want to play around with, right?
Yeah, thankfully I've had this amazing wife that I've been with for nearly 30 years now, and
Yeah,
she's the one that will go, you left the stove on again. I'll go turn that off for you. Make sure you don't burn the house down because you're busy with whatever's going on inside that brain of yours.
yeah,
So she keeps things from becoming dangerous in
sure.
life.
I think we all need somebody to kind of guide us back to reality. Um, so with that, right? Like you're talking about things that you have an idea for something and you tinker with it, and then eventually, you come up with an idea that's, I guess, sound enough to actually. And I'm guessing you're talking about like using agents and things for these stuff. Like, what does that iterative process look like for you? Like, do you actually spend a considerable amount of time with like that first prompt, or is your first prompt usually just a paragraph of like what you want, and then you kind of do that iterative, like, actually no, do this, actually no, do that? Or do you try to like spend like that first enter you press, like, get the most money out of it?
No, I do it super ad hoc. Like whatever the thought was, that's pretty much the prompt.
Hmm.
And I've been trying to like get other people, some folks that I was working with at my prior job. I was trying to get them on board with this. Go into planning mode. Like that is the easiest way to get a tiny prompt into something buildable. Is like flip into planning mode and just put your thought in there and let it like go through and churn out the markdown file, and then you can go back and look at that and go, oh, okay, this is the plan. Let's tweak the plan, and then kick off the agent to go do some work. Like get it planned out first. Don't just go into like a one-shot prompt and like expect an app to pop out of the other side.
Yeah.
So I do that almost 90% of the time. It's like simple thought into the prompt for plan, get the plan, refine the plan, kick it off.
Yeah. I've started to do a lot of, like, if there's something that I know it's not worth burning the tokens on, even though like I have basically unlimited tokens. We were talking about this before we got started. Um, I have Ollama running on my machine. I have kind of a couple of small models that I like to play around with, and I'm like, okay, like plan mode, like do this locally. And then when it actually comes to like building the app, I'll just throw it into the Copilot app or whatever tool that I'm using, and I'll just I'll go in, use the agent mode or whatever for that. Um, just because I still have like some form of like, am I wasting resources with like this very, very
Mhm.
small thing? Like, do have you played around with like trying to figure out like the most efficient way to like use these tools, like from a energy and cost perspective? Or is it just like,
Yeah,
you know what, my employer's paying for this, they want me to experiment, here we go?
I would challenge you to try it the opposite way.
Mm, okay.
Go into planning mode with the highest amount of AI you can put against
Like
the
max
biggest,
reasoning, like the biggest
yep,
model. Yeah.
and let it flush out the most detailed plan possible.
Okay.
And then put the lightweight agents into effect to build the thing. Because I mean, both theories have, some grounds in
Pros and cons,
reality.
sure. Yeah.
Yep. So the idea is like you're going to have the most concrete plan possible. So the chance that it's going to go off and hallucinate or do something you didn't ask it to do is much less because you have this well-written, plan with all the caveats in it and all of the guidelines of what to do, what not to do. And then the simpler models can go off and do the busy work. Because a lot of the stuff that it's going to probably do isn't really proprietary or custom in any way.
Yeah.
It's just, finding resources of, how to do this if statement the way
Yeah.
it's been done a million times over, and it's nothing, new or out of the box. And you might find that it's a little bit more efficient. You might not. I'm not sure. Like I'd have to experiment myself, but that's kind of the way I've been leaning lately.
I think it's important to kind of figure out like what works best for you too. Like, the very sophisticated plan, I really appreciate that, especially like if you interact with it. Like, it asks you some questions as it goes through sort of the thinking for putting it together the plan. That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Um I just like I've very much fallen like into the trap that good marketing companies have basically like, oh, you need Opus, or you need like the most highest performing model to generate code because it's the best at writing code. And I think to your point, like as long as the training set is somewhat relevant, like the quote unquote power of the model, especially if the plan is really well thought out, isn't as important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the planning part. I mean, if you have a weak plan and then you're putting like the most powerful agent you have against a weak plan, then I think you're going to end up burning more tokens in the long run while that thing goes and trips over, problems and has to solve them when it could have been probably avoided up front. So if you
Yeah.
have a really well thought out plan that tells it like these are some problems and not to do these things, then you're going to have less loops that it's gone through to get to the final product. So that's been one of the ways I've been working on these things. Like one of the examples, do you watch Silo?
Yes.
Okay, there is a AI voice in Silo called the
Spoilers.
algorithm.
Spoilers, man. Spoilers. Anyway,
Yeah, I think people have seen that far. At least it
if you
doesn't
care
really
about
spoil
if you
much.
care
I think
about
you see it
Silo,
pretty
you know what
early
we're
on.
talking about. I think it was
We
end of season
assume it is
one,
an
right?
AI voice, by the way. I don't think that's been guaranteed yet. I don't
Did
know
you
if
read the
that's
books?
been. No, I didn't.
Okay. I haven't read the books
Yeah,
either, but I assume that somebody who's read the books is gonna watch this or listen to this and they're gonna scream what the answer is.
yeah,
But anyway,
probably.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Probably. So anyway, there is a screen they look at that has like a voice that's being displayed. The audio part of it's being displayed as like kind of it looks almost like water bouncing
Yeah.
like up and down that goes with the waveform. So that was like one of the things I was like, that would be cool to have like a voice agent that looks like the one on the show. So I spun up Claude and I did some, manual research first. And I was like, knowing what I know from games, this is probably best done with particle simulation.
Mm,
So,
okay.
particle emitters and simulators and stuff are used in gaming all the time. It goes pretty far back. So, like, for example, if you have a character that's damaged and it's spitting out smoke, right? A particle emitter is perfect for that because it
Okay.
can, you could attach, spoke sprites to the particles and they get kind of emitted off of that thing that's
I'm gonna
damaged.
take
It
your word
looks like
for it,
it's
Ed.
smoke coming
You're
off.
going way over my head with all this. I'm gonna take your
So
word for it.
fire, sparks,
Yes, yeah.
anything that glitters or shines and that type of stuff is really great for like particle effects. So I was like, I bet somebody's got like a 3JS like particle thing somewhere. And I found this really cool website that is exactly that. So somebody had like this whole particle engine in 3JS, and it really wasn't that complex. Probably because 3JS is doing all the heavy lifting anyway.
Sure.
And it was like totally open source and stuff. And I grabbed the repo, pointed Claude at it, and I was like, hey, take this thing, and I want a grid of particles that reacts to an incoming wave of audio. So I took our Deepgram APIs and fed that to Claude, and I was like, make this thing, and it came back with a couple examples, and I just kept telling it to iterate on that. It's like this doesn't look quite right. Try it this way, and It finally got to the point where it looks pretty close to what the show has. Not as like CGI like
Sure,
fancy,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
but like a practical like thing that runs in your browser version of it, and you can talk to it and stuff. So we'll do a show about that
That's cool.
pretty soon.
That's
Yeah, that
cool.
that one was fun.
Yeah. That on GitHub yet or no?
No, not. I don't think I pushed that one to GitHub yet. Um, if it is, it's on my personal GitHub.
Yeah,
It's not
sure.
on our Deepgram one. But yeah, that was a fun side project. But I didn't spend like any like crazy amount of time doing it myself. Like I let Claude do 99% of the work because, like I said, I have things to do. Like
Yeah.
this isn't something I can go down a rabbit hole and lose a day on. I've got workshops, right, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's you know, here's another question for you, especially like in this area, like you mentioned about creating workshops, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when, and for people that might not know, like Ed, you've been speaking at conferences for a long, long time.
Yeah,
And
something
that's
like
how,
12, 13 years.
yeah, and that's how Ed and I know each other. So when it comes to like creating content, like how much help do you get from AI doing that? Like,
A lot. Like
yeah,
this is one of the biggest performance gains is not so much the coding part, but you talk about like busy work and stuff. Like workshop is an endeavor to
yeah,
build. There are a lot of moving pieces to a workshop. So you have people come in, they have Lord knows what device they're going to use.
yeah,
They come in with Windows, they could come in with Chrome, they could come in with a Mac, whatever, and they want to build something. And then whatever that thing is you're going to build has dependencies, whether it's
sure,
.NET, Python, package managers, etc., etc. There is a lot of opportunity for failure,
yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
So usually when you run a workshop, the first hour of that workshop is getting everybody on the same page just
yeah,
to get started. Like install
yeah,
your prerequisites. What machine are you using? Well, if it's on Windows, you use WSL. If you're on, Mac, it's going to be this command, and it's a whole thing. That part of it has gotten so much easier to write
sure,
because I can say, this is, the first steps to get started. Yeah, what would this look like on these machines? Or create a container for this
yeah,
project. Because if people come and they have a different setup, they could just run the container. And I don't have to sit there and know how to write Docker files and YAML and all of that. It just does it for me.
mhm,
So I finished writing a workshop for Deepgram, and I built it pretty much in a week. It would normally take me at least a month.
yeah,
And it is more bulletproof than any workshop I've ever created because it was able to do all of those things that I just said. Not only did it create the workshop, it synced it with three other versions of that same workshop because we partner with AWS and they have their own work instructions serving like documentation system.
sure,
And they're like, we need it in this format. And then we have our own. And then there's all of the markdown lab files that are in the source code part of the workshop. So I created, the source code version, and it has all the work instructions in it as markdown files that you can just read as markdown. Then I had Claude translate that into our like hosted documentation for workshops. And then I had it translate that into the AWS flavor of that documentation for the workshop. And it keeps everything in sync. And like if there's a different style annotation for, like a call out or a warning or something like that, like it translates all of that. Like it makes it so much easier. I would have to build like batch jobs or something like that to do that type of thing in the past, and it would have taken weeks.
it's yeah, I struggle with it because it's I feel like when you do it like quote unquote manually, you you don't need to like study. Like you just like you know what you're doing. But I feel like when you have AI generate, like you have to go back and study the thing. right? Like, I think that because I was contemplating creating like a workshop, and I was like, oh, like I kind of had this idea because I've done workshops before, and I'm like, okay, this is the framework and this is the format that I want to follow, and I threw it into Claude, and it generated the stuff, but like I felt like I had this responsibility to like do the workshop a few times myself. Where else if I've
Hmm.
done when I would do a workshop in the past, like I built it like piece by piece by piece, so I didn't feel like I had to go through it end to end.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, how do you kind of reconcile with that?
So both things take forever, right?
Yeah,
So if you build it, you get the first pass where you're like, you build the thing and it's kind of like a proof of concept. And you're like, it works, but maybe these steps aren't like how you would normally get there, or they take you like too far down a given path. And it could have been a lot shorter or whatever. And then you rewrite bits of it. And then you have
hmm,
to go like, say you made a change on step 2 that affects something upstream on step like 4 or whatever. Now you got to sync all these steps together. And you're doing that manually, and that's a pain. Like it's a painful process. Making workshops is painful.
yeah,
Every workshop you've ever attended or taken probably took at least 10 times as long to develop
yeah,
than it did to take it. Like at least.
yeah,
That's putting it mildly, right? So one of the things that helped a lot was I like workshops where you can come in late and you can jump in at any step and it's ready to run from that step.
yeah,
So the first iteration of the workshop didn't have that. And I was like, oh man, stepping through this and like figuring out if each step works and verifying all the code that's there, this is going to be a nightmare. And I was like, this is the end product I want anyway. Go ahead and make it runnable from any step.
yeah,
So every folder I open, I should be able to just run it as is and start, you know, the process of that step. Once I did that, it was really easy, not only for me, but Claude to verify.
yeah,
So what it did is it generated a script to run all of the steps. And because, step 2, it starts at step 1's completion, it could go into step 2 and run it and then verify that step 1 was valid.
sure,
And then to verify that step 2 was valid, it would just run step 3 and so on all the way until it gets to the final one. And I was like, oh, this is even cooler
yeah,
because
yeah,
now it's automated this itself. So it verifies that the whole workshop works. Now I just need to go make sure like it's easy to follow. And then I went through like probably 2 steps. I think there's 10. And I was like on step 2 and I was like, this, like, why am I copying and pasting code? And some of the comments are hard to follow. So I fixed it. And I said, take what I fixed here and apply it to the rest of the steps. Like, I don't want to have to go do this again, right?
yeah, yeah,
So, like, one of the things I did was instead of like copying and pasting code blocks in, I just went in and created, the comments that describe it. I put in Python there, pound for a comment. So I put pound colon for the ones that you're not going to uncomment. Like, that's the ones that you want to read. They explain what happens below. And then the ones that you're going to uncomment, I just left as normal comments.
yeah,
So the end user can just come in and see like, okay, these comments are different, and I'll just uncomment the easy ones here, and I'll just read the code and see what it does, and I should understand what this does. So that's the kind of pattern that I set up. And then once I set up the pattern, I'm like, go ahead and apply this to the rest of it. And this will make it easier, not only for me to follow, but whoever's doing the workshop.
yeah. I mean, I think that it is essential to give people checkpoints, right? Like
Mhm.
when you like for any like if any content that's going to take somebody a couple of hours to actually go through, like the expectation that like, oh, you're going to start from zero and get to here, like that's unreasonable. Like I think
Yeah.
like it's almost a requirement that it's like, okay, like you need to go and take a phone call and come back. Like, okay, well you missed this part, you can just start here. And
Yeah.
like obviously everything is you can take a look at it like yesterday or tomorrow or whatever. Um what are your thoughts about like other like forms of content and using like AI? And I'll be the first one to say like, you know, for me, like creating like the hardest thing that I have to do whenever I create content is like do voiceover work.
Mhm.
And like you work at a company that probably kind of solves that, right? Like what are your thoughts about that, right? Where, you know, going forward, you create a video, and
Yeah.
you can just train a voice that sounds exactly like you, and now you never have to record a voiceover.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people like to see a person still.
Yeah,
So like you and I are talking right now, we're not just voices unless you're listening to it podcast style, but there's people talking on TV. I think people still like that even with marketing style videos, and I mean YouTube on its own can prove the point, right?
yeah,
Every YouTube video essentially most of them have some sort of host. Some tubers on people expect to see a human. You can do like canned avatars even, but they're so uncanny valley.
yeah,
Every time one comes on TV, I immediately recognize it, and I'm like, that's AI. My wife just rolls her eyes because she's like, yeah, this is like kind of what you guys do. So
yeah,
why are you
sure,
complaining about it?
yeah,
Um, so I haven't done anything where I'm having our voices do the media for me.
mm,
Um, but what I can say is I use for my video recording. So if I'm doing something that's canned and not like improv live video, if I'm doing like something that's going to be recorded for YouTube, what I'll do is I'll run the script through AI.
hmm,
Um, I I usually write most of the script, or at least pretty good outline of what I want to do. And then what's great is you can say, hey, AI, like plan this as a video for X amount of time.
yeah,
And it will take that script and it will break it down into segments and then estimate the time it's going to take to do it.
yeah,
So what that gives you is a rough outline of, oh, I over planned for this thing because it needs to be 5 minutes and I've got 15 minutes of content.
yeah,
So that gives you a heads up, like you might need to edit some things. So I'll generally like try to do like a dry run, like, it's running through the first few minutes to see if that's accurate and then adjust. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll take the final script, I'll give it back to AI and I'll say, hey, make this in a teleprompter friendly format.
mm,
Because,
yeah,
at the present time, it's got like headings and it's like 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to say this, 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to say that. And I don't want all that in a teleprompter. So I say, make this teleprompter friendly. It strips all the junk out, puts it all on a fresh line, to where each, phrase stops and stuff like that. And then you just paste it into your teleprompter. Then I am terrible at reading while I talk.
mm,
This is something that I think everybody's different. And I cannot I cannot take notes. So I always got in trouble in school for this. I cannot listen to somebody teach something, comprehend it, and take notes on it at the same time. Like there's a threading issue,
okay,
right? So I either can listen to you and remember everything that you're telling me, or I can write it down and I'll completely forget everything that I wrote.
okay,
So I would never take notes in school. I have the same problem with reading and speaking at the same time. If I have to read it and speak it, I either have to like literally be reading it verbatim and I'm not going to really comprehend what's coming out of my
yeah,
mouth, or I need to memorize it and just say it.
yeah,
So memorizing stuff is hard.
yeah,
So what you end up with is a video of me with my eyes going back and forth across the screen really, really bad, no matter how good the teleprompter is. So what I do is I have something called NVIDIA Broadcasts on my Windows PC, and it has the ability to redraw your eyes
yeah.
on camera.
Does that better? I remember I when it first came out, I tried it and it was like it was very uncanny valley. Like,
It's gotten past that.
okay,
Yeah. So as long as you're not like as long as you don't turn your head to the side too often, it's not bad. Like every once in a
okay,
while, if you turn your head to the side, like you'll get like these weird like eyes that like look off,
okay.
you know,
Well,
like outside your whatever it's called, like your eye socket
It
area. It
doesn't look
looks
like
kind
you
of
have
like,
googly eyes because when
yeah,
the
it
first time
does
it came, it
that.
looked like you had googly eyes.
As long as you're looking, like if I'm reading a teleprompter, I'm not looking this way and this way.
Yeah,
So as long as you're like you're pointing at the camera, it's great.
yeah.
So I can record the entire video just by reading it. Like I just read what's on the screen, and then I can go back and edit when I'm done if I need to. But that is like my workflow if I'm gonna do something that's scripted like that. Like I'll use AI to help generate the script and transfer it into different formats for whatever mode of operation I'm in, and then the AI eyes. It's funny because it's like the Homer like glasses that he puts on,
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
like to sleep in church. I put those on and I read my script, and the videos come out pretty darn good. So I use a lot of AI stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that that's how we be more efficient today, right? We take advantage of these tools. And yes, there's experimentation. Like some tools work for this thing but I think if you're not using these tools, like you're missing out on an opportunity to do
Oh
things
man,
a bit more seamless, right?
yeah,
I don't get the people that are like, nope, none of these tools. I'm not going to use any of these tools. Um, I agree that we shouldn't
it's
just blindly go in like head first and like not care anymore about what gets created, but um, there's a happy medium for sure.
I gave, you said like we've both been doing like conferences and stuff for a long time. I gave in 2016 or 2013. I'm trying to remember now. It's been at least 10 years, if not more. I was telling people back then that you need to learn about AI
Mhm.
because it's going to be in everything we do. And if it's not in your software now, your competitors are going to beat you to the punch.
Interesting.
And I can just tell that the the trend that we were on was going to hit an inflection point sooner or later.
Yeah.
And the ability to take all of the data that we've had over the past and actually act on it. Like you think of all the data that we've collected over year after year after year, like it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And it's like it got to an unmanageable point. So we collect it's like zettabytes like per year now. It's
Yeah.
like some insane number. It's like it's nothing you could humanly go through ever. Like it's lifetimes of data that we collect every day. So we needed something. We needed AI to be able to make sense of all the data we collect. Otherwise, it was just useless. And now that we have it, like it's unlocking all these new capabilities for people. And if you ignore it, like you're going to get left in the dust.
Yeah.
It's
Very
just
much
it's a
so.
necessity at this point. Like we've painted ourselves into this corner of collecting so much data that is unparsable by a human. That's
Yeah.
just the fact. So if you try to ignore AI and like I'm not going to use this because of whatever, sorry, but you're doing yourself a huge disservice, and you may not be employable at some point if you keep it up. Like I would definitely like tell you to change your attitude because it's not going to do anything but hurt you.
No, I 100% agree. I think that, I use the phrase career limiting moves. And
Hmm.
I think it is very much a career limiting move at this point to like not at least see how you can use these things. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Yeah, this was the main driver of my career change was we weren't allowed or weren't, or were restricted or peers weren't doing the things that needed to be done. Like this was very much a conscious decision of if I don't do something today to change my career and go somewhere where these skills are being developed and utilized, then a couple more years down the road, when I get laid off or I want to change careers, then it's going to be hard
yeah,
because where am I going to learn all this stuff? Because we're not doing it here.
yeah,
So, yeah. And I've also seen like my wife, like I said, we've been married 30 years, almost. It's like 27. 27, 28. Um, she is the polar opposite of me. She is not a technology person. Until probably about a year ago, she didn't really have an email address. Like she had one, but didn't like log it for anything unless it was like an emergency, doctor's appointment, something like that happened. Um, she never owned a computer,
Mm.
no PC,
Wow.
nothing but a phone. Within the last year, she got the spark to start a business, and she probably knows more about AI than most people I know.
Mm.
She picked up these tools, and I think because she's kind of put herself in this unique bubble of not having the baggage of knowing Windows, operating systems,
Yeah.
file systems, word processing, like all this old school technology, like all she's ever dealt with is AI. She took off like a rocket.
Yeah.
She is more astute than most people. Like it's insane to watch. It's been this crazy transformation. I'm just watching her. Like she'll tell me like, I created a skill for, Chat GPT to do X, Y, and Z, and it's generating graphics for me, and it's she's made characters and they all have voices, and I'm just like, who are you?
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, I mean, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about like the idea. It's like, you are not limited by your capabilities. Your creativity is not limited by your capabilities anymore, right? Like
Mhm.
if you have an idea for something and you can explain it well enough in human language, you can get close to what you want. And then it's iterating like we've been talking about, right?
Mhm.
This conversation, Ed, has been awesome. It's really been great to hear a little bit about how you got started in tech, your love of Counter Strike, which I really appreciate, and just kind of how you go about using like AI to do your day to day. I think it's really important to hear people that have figured out a way to be successful with these tools, like actually kind of go through their thought process. So I appreciate it.
It's been fun. Yeah, it's like I said, it's been night and day over the last I've been with Deepgram 30 plus days. So it's been
Okay.
about a month. And it was, I was using these tools on my own accounts and things,
Yeah.
but we were really restricted in the way we could use them where I was. And then to turn around and join a company that's like, okay, we're AI first. If you're not using these tools, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Like I like to say Claude is our operating system. Like
Mm,
everybody is on it. It's connected to every app that we have, and we drive from there.
yeah.
And it's so different. And if you're like I said, if you're not trying to sharpen those skills, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing the things that you're gonna start playing around with. I'm looking forward, like you were giving that example of, that waveform sort of like visual. Like I want to play around with that, to be completely honest. So get that
Yeah.
out there so I can play around with it. So for the folks that you might not already be following Ed, your Ed is a lot of places online. Ed Charbeneau is basically the handle for all of it. So that's EDCHARBENEAU. There'll also be some links to specific places that Ed's at. There'll be a link to Deepgram and some of the stuff they're doing there as well. Before we sign off, my friend, do we have any parting words?
Um, yeah, just like you said, follow me online. I'm gonna try to play with as much cool, fun technology as I can. I always, like I said, I think I have an ear to the ground and I know where things are going just because I geek out to stuff.
Sure.
And my mind wanders and I'm like, where's this thing going next? So if you're into like futurism and you want to see where technology is headed and stuff like that, follow me, talk to me about it, and we'll have some fun.
Yeah. Awesome. You know, it's funny because the way you've been talking about things, it's like you almost like you kind of unlock this new skill, right? And I want people to just come take from this is that like look for skills that you didn't think you had that you can now unlock with this stuff. Um, so with that, this has been Coffee and Open Source. My name is Isaac Levin. If you like this episode, be sure to like it and share with your friends. And if you want to talk with me, you know where to reach out. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. From my friend Art Charbeneau, take care. And we're out.